If you knew what I will not ask you when you stand before me, your entire life would change today. Not tomorrow, not next week, today. Because most of you are preparing for questions I will never speak. You are building answers to tests I will never give. You are polishing performances I will never watch. And when your final breath leaves your body, when the curtain of this world falls and you stand in the silence of eternity, you will realize with absolute clarity that everything you prepared was for the wrong exam. I will not ask you how much money you made. I will not ask you what car you drove or what house you owned. I will not ask you how many people knew your name or how many followers you gathered. These things that consumed your days, that stole your sleep, that drove your ambition, I will not mention them, not because they were evil, but because they were never the point. You spent decades chasing titles. You fought for recognition. You compared yourself to others and measured your worth by their standards. And when you come before me, none of that will matter. The promotions you celebrated, the achievements you framed, the status you defended, I will not ask about any of it, because in eternity, all of that is dust. It does not translate. It does not cross over. It stays behind with the world that created it. I will not ask you how many prayers you said. I know this surprises you. You thought prayer was the currency of heaven. You thought that if you prayed long enough, loud enough, often enough, you would pass the test. But I do not count prayers like coins. I do not measure devotion by repetition. A prayer spoken from fear is not the same as a prayer spoken from love. A prayer performed for others to see is not the same as a prayer whispered in secret. You thought I was impressed by volume, but I was listening for sincerity. I will not ask you how many times you went to church, how many sermons you heard, how many scriptures you memorized. You thought attendance was righteousness. You thought rituals made you holy. But I never called you to fill seats. I called you to fill hearts. Yours first, then others. Many of you sat in sacred spaces with empty spirits. You sang songs without meaning them. You bowed without surrendering. And you believed that because you showed up, you were faithful. But I was not counting your visits. I was watching your transformation. I will not ask you what religion you followed, what denomination you belonged to, what doctrine you defended. You spent so much time arguing over names and traditions, dividing yourselves into camps, building walls between my children. You believed your label mattered. You believed your interpretation was the only truth. But I never created a religion. I created relationship. And while you were debating theology, you were missing me. While you were defending your version of faith, you were losing the heart of it. I will not ask you how successful you were. The world taught you that success is wealth, power, influence, fame, and you believed it. You sacrificed relationships for careers. You traded presence for productivity. You gave your best energy to things that could never love you back. And when you stand before me, you will see with perfect clarity that success in my eyes looked nothing like success in the world's eyes. The man you ignored on the street may have been richer than the billionaire you envied. The woman you dismissed may have carried more light than the celebrity you followed. I will not ask you how much you knew. You filled your mind with information. You studied. You learned. You became an expert in subjects that will not exist in eternity. Knowledge puffed you up. It made you feel superior. It gave you confidence to judge others who knew less. But wisdom is not information. Wisdom is love applied. And many of the wisest souls I have ever known could not read a single book. They simply knew how to love without condition. They knew how to forgive without hesitation. They knew how to give without expectation. That is the knowledge that matters. I will not ask you if you were perfect. You already know you were not. You carried shame for every mistake. You punished yourself for every failure. You believed that if you could just be flawless, you would be worthy. But I never asked for perfection. I asked for surrender. I never demanded sinlessness. I offered grace. You thought you had to earn my love. But love that must be earned is not love. It is transaction. And I am not a merchant. I am a father. I will not ask you how much you suffered. Suffering does not make you holy. Pain does not earn you a crown. You thought that if you endured enough hardship, you would deserve heaven. But heaven is not a reward for misery. Heaven is the natural state of a soul that learned to love. Some of you suffered greatly and became bitter. Others suffered little and became humble. It was never about how much you endured. It was about what you became through it. I will not ask you how much you believed. Belief is not the goal. Even demons believe. Belief without transformation is just information in your head. You claimed to believe in me, but you did not live like you believed. You said you trusted me, but you lived in fear. You declared faith, but you hoarded control. Belief that does not change you is not belief. It is agreement. And I never asked you to agree with me. I asked you to become like me. I will not ask you how many people you converted, how many souls you convinced, how many minds you changed. You thought evangelism was your duty. You thought spreading my name was your mission. But I never asked you to force belief. I asked you to live in such a way that others would ask what made you different. You preached at people who needed presence. You quoted scripture to people who needed compassion. You declared truth to people who needed tenderness. And they walked away not because my message was wrong, but because your delivery was loveless. I will not ask you if you were liked, if you were popular, if you were accepted. The world's approval was never my approval. Many of those I loved most were hated by the world. They were misunderstood. They were rejected. They were mocked. But they did not bend. They did not compromise. They did not trade truth for applause. And when they stood before me, I welcomed them not because they were celebrated, but because they were faithful. I will not ask you how much you gave to charity. Generosity is not measured in dollars. You can give millions and still have a closed heart. You can give nothing and still have the spirit of abundance. I never needed your money. I needed your willingness. The woman who gave 2 coins gave more than the man who donated a building because she gave from her lack. He gave from his excess. She gave with trust. He gave for recognition. And I saw the difference. I will not ask you how much you accomplished. Your resume will not matter. Your achievements will not translate. The applause you received will not echo in eternity. You built empires that crumbled. You created legacies that faded. You left your mark on a world that is temporary, and none of it will follow you here. The only thing that crosses over is the love you gave and the love you received. Everything else stays behind. I will not ask you if you were right. You spent your life defending your opinions. You argued, you debated, you insisted. You needed to win, you needed to prove, you needed to be validated. But being right does not make you righteous. You can be correct in every argument and still be wrong in your spirit. You can have all the answers and still miss the point. Truth without love is just noise. And I never asked you to be loud. I asked you to be kind. I will not ask you if you were religious. Religion is man's system. I created connection. Many of the most religious people I knew had the coldest hearts. They followed rules but lacked compassion. They obeyed laws but showed no mercy. They honored tradition but ignored the suffering of others. And when they stood before me, they expected reward for their discipline. But discipline without love is just performance. And I never applauded performance. I celebrated transformation. I will not ask you how busy you were. You wore busyness like a badge of honor. You filled every moment. You scheduled every hour. You believed that productivity proved your worth. But I never measured you by your output. I measured you by your overflow. Were you so busy that you missed the people I placed in your path? Were you so productive that you ignored the whispers of your soul? Were you so scheduled that you forgot to rest? Busyness is not holiness. It is distraction. And many of you were too busy to hear me calling. I will not ask you if you were strong. Strength is not what you think it is. You admired those who never cried. You celebrated those who never needed help. You honored those who carried everything alone. But I never asked you to be strong. I asked you to be surrendered. True strength is admitting weakness. True power is asking for help. True courage is being vulnerable. And the strongest souls I know are the ones who broke and let me rebuild them. I will not ask you how much you protected yourself. You built walls to keep pain out. You created defenses to avoid hurt. You guarded your heart like a fortress. And in doing so, you also locked out love. You kept yourself safe, but you also kept yourself small. You avoided risk, but you also avoided growth. I never promised you a life without pain. I promised you a presence in the pain. And those who risked love, even when it hurt, found something you never did. They found me. I will not ask you if you were happy. Happiness is a feeling. It comes and goes. It is dependent on circumstances. It is fragile. I never promised you happiness. I promised you peace, and peace is deeper than happiness. Peace can exist in the middle of storms. Peace can hold you when everything is falling apart. Peace does not require perfect conditions. It requires trust. And many of you spent your entire lives chasing happiness while peace was waiting in surrender. I will not ask you how many people hurt you, or how many times you were betrayed, or how deeply you were wounded. Yes, you were hurt. Yes, you suffered injustice. Yes, you carried pain that was not your fault. But I will not ask you about what was done to you. I will ask you what you did with it. Did you let it make you bitter or better? Did you let it close your heart or crack it open? Did you use your pain as an excuse or as an invitation to grow? The wound is not the issue. What you became because of the wound is. I will not ask you how much you feared. Fear is human. Every soul I created has tasted fear. Fear of death, fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of the unknown. But I will not ask you if you were afraid. I will ask you if you moved forward anyway. Did you let fear stop you? Or did you feel the fear and trust me through it? Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is obedience in the presence of fear. And the bravest souls are the ones who trembled but still took the step. I will not ask you if others forgave you. Forgiveness from others is a gift, but it is not in your control. Some will forgive you, some will not. Some will hold grudges that outlive your life, but their unforgiveness does not define you. What defines you is whether you forgave yourself. Did you release the weight of your past? Did you stop punishing yourself for mistakes I already erased? Did you accept the grace I freely gave? Or did you live in shame that I never assigned? I will not ask you if you forgave others. Forgiveness is not optional. It is essential, not because those who hurt you deserve it, but because you deserve freedom. Unforgiveness is poison you drink hoping someone else will die. It chains you to the past. It steals your peace. It blocks your growth. And when you stand before me, you will see clearly that every moment you spent in bitterness was a moment stolen from joy. Those who wronged you may never apologize. But your freedom does not depend on their repentance. It depends on your release. I will not ask you if you were understood. Most of you were not. You were misread, misinterpreted, misjudged. People saw your actions, but not your intentions. They saw your exterior, but not your interior. They saw your mistakes, but not your growth. And it hurt. You wanted to be seen. You wanted to be known. But I saw you. I knew you. And my understanding is the only one that matters. You do not need the world's validation when you have mine. So what will I ask you? After all these things, I will not ask what remains. What is the one question that matters? What is the test you should have been preparing for all along? I will ask you this, only this, and everything depends on your answer. Did you love? That is all. Did you love? Not did you claim to love. Not did you perform love when it was convenient. Not did you love those who loved you back. But did you actually love? Did you love when it was hard? Did you love when it cost you something? Did you love when no one was watching? Did you love those who could not repay you? Did you love those who did not deserve it? Did you love when it made no logical sense? Did you love even when you were afraid? This is the question I will ask, and it is the question your entire life has been answering. Every choice you made, every word you spoke, every thought you held, every action you took, all of it was either an expression of love or a denial of love. You thought life was complicated. You thought righteousness was a long list of rules. You thought holiness was a performance, but I made it simple. I gave you one command: love, love me, love others, love yourself. That is all. And now you know, now you see, now you understand that everything you were worried about was distraction. All the things you thought mattered were shadows. The only substance is love. The only currency that transfers from this world to the next is love. The only thing I will measure is love. Not your success, not your knowledge, not your reputation, not your religion, just your love. So what will you do with this truth? Will you continue preparing for questions I will never ask? Will you keep building a life that impresses people but does not reflect me? Or will you reorder everything around the one thing that matters? Will you simplify your focus? Will you let go of what does not serve love? Will you stop performing and start becoming? You do not have forever. The clock is ticking. Your breath is numbered. And when the final moment comes, you will not get a second chance to rewrite your story. You will not get to go back and love better. What you do now is what will matter then. The love you give today is the treasure you store for eternity. The kindness you show now is the legacy you leave. The forgiveness you extend today is the freedom you will carry. Do not wait. Do not assume you have more time. Death does not announce itself. It does not give warnings. It simply arrives. And when it does, you will stand before me, and I will not ask you about your accomplishments. I will not ask you about your sacrifices. I will not ask you about your beliefs. I will ask you about your love. But understand this, when I ask if you loved, I am not asking about feelings. Love is not emotion. Emotion is temporary. Emotion is reaction. Emotion comes and goes with circumstances. I am asking about choice. Did you choose love when everything in you wanted to choose bitterness? Did you choose love when it would have been easier to choose revenge? Did you choose love when your pride screamed to choose self-protection? Because love is not what you feel. Love is what you do when you do not feel like doing it. I will not ask you if you felt compassion. I will ask you if you acted with compassion. You can feel sorry for someone and still walk past them. You can feel moved by suffering and still do nothing. But compassion that does not move your hands is not compassion. It is sentiment. And sentiment does not change the world. Action does. The ones who loved well did not wait to feel ready. They did not wait to feel capable. They saw need and they responded. Even when they were tired, even when they were broken, even when they had nothing left to give, they gave anyway. That is love. I will not ask you if you were consistent. Humans are not machines. You will stumble. You will fall. You will have days when love feels impossible. You will have seasons when darkness overwhelms you, and that is okay. I do not expect perfection. I expect return. When you fall, do you stay down or do you rise again? When you fail to love, do you give up or do you try once more? Consistency is not about never failing. It is about never quitting. It is about returning to love even after you have abandoned it. The ones who loved well were not the ones who never fell. They were the ones who kept getting back up. I will not ask you if you understood me. You will never fully understand me. I am infinite. You are finite. I am eternal. You are temporal. I am mystery. You are logic. And that is okay. I do not need you to understand me. I need you to trust me. There were things in your life that made no sense. Suffering you could not explain. Delays you could not comprehend. Losses that felt cruel. And you wanted answers. You demanded reasons. You needed to understand. But some things cannot be understood. They can only be surrendered. And the ones who loved well were not the ones who understood everything. They were the ones who trusted anyway. I will not ask you if your life was fair. It was not. Some of you were born into privilege, some into poverty, some into love, some into neglect, some had advantages, some had obstacles, and none of it was fair. But fairness is not the measure of a life. Purpose is. And every single soul, regardless of where they started, had the same opportunity to love. The rich and the poor, the healthy and the sick, the celebrated and the forgotten. All of you had the choice to love. And that choice was the equalizer. It did not matter what you had. It mattered what you gave. Did you love? That is the question. That is the only question. That is the question I will ask. And it is the question you must answer now. Not someday, not when you are ready, not when life is easier, now. Because now is all you have. Now is the moment where love is being tested. Now is where eternity is being written. And if you want to hear me say, well done on the day you stand before me, you must live a life of love today. Not perfect love, not flawless love, not love that never fails, but sincere love, humble love, persistent love, love that tries, love that forgives, love that serves, love that sees, love that stays. That is the love I will ask about. That is the love that matters. That is the love that remains when everything else is gone. Did you love? Answer that question with your life, because when all is said and done, when the noise of the world fades and you stand in the eternal silence, when every distraction has been stripped away and only truth remains, that is the question that will define everything. Not what you achieved, not what you accumulated, not what others said about you, but whether you loved, whether you chose love over fear, whether you chose love over pride, whether you chose love over comfort, whether you loved when it cost you, whether you loved when it was inconvenient, whether you loved when no one was watching, whether you loved even when you received nothing in return. That is what I will ask. And the answer you give will be written not in your words, but in the life you lived. So live in such a way that when I ask, the answer will be clear. Live in such a way that love is unmistakable. Live in such a way that your life itself becomes the answer. Did you love? Let every breath, every moment, every choice declare yes.